Hello, Ethos friends and family. Jonathan Jacobs here, founder and CEO of Ethos Grooming Station for Men. We have a very special treat for you today. We're going to be sitting down and chatting about mental wellness and mental health with a close friend of mine, a former business partner, clinical psychologist, entrepreneur, and wellness coach, Dr. Rayvann Kee. So without further ado, Dr. Kee, how are you, sir?
I'm well. Thank you for having me here today.
Very nice, man. Good to see you, man. You look good.
You too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Got to make it do
Nice.
what it does.
Very cool. Well, listen, man, we're gonna get started. Just have a few questions for you. For all the people who don't know who you are, we can you give us the full scope of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of shared it already, but I am a clinical psychologist. I am the owner of Empowerment Counseling, Coaching, and Consulting, which is a private practice here in the Philadelphia area. I am currently now completely virtual, and I've been working for myself for the last 4 years. I've had the opportunity to work with a wide range of issues, a diverse group of people on things regarding severe mental illness to just general adjustments to day-to-day life. So it's been a wonderful opportunity, and this year has presented some even greater opportunities due to the pandemic and due to some changes that have allowed me to come into the lives of people in a really meaningful way. So I love what I do. Yeah, man, it's good. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm glad to hear you're doing well. Excited for you, man. Continued success.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed. So let's get right into the meat and potatoes of this. The first question I have for you is this: can you share with us some common stigmas that you encounter in your practice, and give us an example of how those stigmas have impacted certain communities and demographics?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think a lot of the work that I am doing or have done has been to destigmatize mental health. When you look at particularly Black and Brown communities, there is a culture that we have built up that we're used to, family of origin dynamics, community and neighborhood dynamics that make us feel like to need mental health is a sign of weakness. To need mental health means that there's something defective about you, or to need mental health means that you're crazy in some way. So I've had to work to kind of help to reframe and redefine what it means to need mental health services, and that it's not always about remedying some type of defect, but it's about maintenance and making sure that you're on point year after year, that you're taking care of something that needs to be checked on a regular basis, and not because you're in some type of crisis.
Let me ask you this question then. From your studies, what percentage of the population have you found to be living with an undiagnosed mental disorder?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because in my research, I found that about 1/5 of the population, 20% of the population, is actually has a diagnosis that has been undiagnosed, and that's not a good thing. And it's disproportionately in the Black and Brown communities, and even more disproportionately men than women. Women have a tendency to share a lot more. They're more willing to go seek help if they need it, but men are twice as likely to not share, not to go for help. And as a result, they're dealing with mental health issues and not realizing how much it's impacting their performances at work, their relationships at home, and their own physical health and wellness, because they won't acknowledge that they're dealing with some type of mental health issue. So, I mean, that's a big thing. 20% is a lot. A fifth of the population is a lot. And yeah, we need to definitely encourage people to go and get those things checked out, because it's going to make a difference, a significant difference in their life.
Wow, wow. That kind of hits home with us. I mean, not to do a shameless plug of Ethos GSFM, but really our goal, it's Ethos Grooming Station for Men, and we don't, we always say, it is about the external, but it's also about the internal. How to
Yeah.
help men really become their best selves, and obviously, if we believe that men can be better at what they do, then it impacts really the family dynamic, the community dynamic, the work dynamic, just all from, men becoming their best selves, and I think I ran this by you when you were at the shop the last time, I have this phrase that I love by Earl Nightingale that says, when a man is all together, his world is all together too. So, yeah, mental health
That's
is very important.
very important. And, I think many of us can kind of guess this, but I know this for a fact that men are silent sufferers. It takes a lot for a man to even talk to another male. So because men have been socialized to kind of have it together, men are socialized to be the ones that we go to for direction, for an answer. This culture kind of keeps them silent and doesn't allow them to acknowledge that they may need help. And what winds up happening is when you don't deal with that emotional piece, that psychological piece, it will manifest itself physically and relationally. And that's what we're seeing a lot of.
Wow, man, that's heavy stuff, man. But let's move on to the next question. The next one really has to do with 2020, infamous, right? Because of the social landscape, the political landscape, the health landscape, everyone pretty much have been impacted by 2020. So this question I have for you is this: how do you feel this year has affected the mental well-being of people throughout the globe?
Woo, I tell you. This year has been a year, and the pandemic, it's really hard to describe the impact that it's had on people's mental health and wellness. But what I've learned, what I've noticed as a clinical psychologist, and the direction my practice has gone, is that the pandemic has forced people to kind of sit down and confront themselves in ways that they've never confronted themselves. What I've realized is that some of the mental health issues, many of the mental health issues that people are now more aware of, have always been there. But because there was no pandemic, there were ways for them to kind of have changes in venue to cope. They were able to throw themselves in their work and distract themselves. They were able to get on a plane and go travel somewhere. There were ways that they were able to avoid dealing with some very deep-seated, deep-rooted issues that now, because of the pandemic, they have no choice but to confront. Even in terms of relationships, husbands and wives and children in the same space for hours and hours. You talk about personality clashes. I know some people who have to take a second look on whether or not marriage was the thing for them now. That's how much the pandemic has really impacted people. And, I'm sure that you're aware, and many of us are aware, that, grief and loss has been a big thing this year. Not only the loss of individuals, but a loss of routine, a loss of financial stability, a loss of independence almost, and self-sufficiency. People are forced to kind of mourn what was and trying to kind of establish and embrace what's new. And we're creatures of habit. That's difficult for us to do. So we're dealing with the grief and loss. We're dealing with feelings of anxiety that we've never had before, because we really can't plan. Like, I feel sorry for those who are planners, because it's like, there's this fear of the unknown, and you're telling me we don't know what's going to happen. So I can't plan. I don't know what's going to happen months from now. For some people, that will send their anxiety through the roof. We're dealing with quarantine and Zoom fatigue. Come on now. And now we're in the holiday season. We're in a season that's all about family, all about connection, all about seeing folk I haven't seen in a long time, all about, just being able to catch up and touch and hug. We can't do any of that. So this pandemic has definitely affected people's mental health and wellness. But let me say this as well. I feel like the pandemic has also stirred the creative juices of individuals and have forced many to overcome fears that they didn't realize were as strong as it was. It's caused people to move from psychological rigidity to more mental flexibility, and allows them to take risks that I've talked to people who have completely shifted careers during this year and are making more money in the new career than they were in the old career. So this pandemic has had really interesting impact, I think, both in the negative and in the positive.
You know, it's one of those things. It's kind of like when you deal with situations that test the human spirit generally figures out a way. You know, it's been tough for a lot of people, of course, but hopefully that many people have been able to take this year and learn from it and be able to grow and move on.
And listen, I think the operative word is move on, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I know too many people who are kind of making do and coping with what is now until hopefully things go back to some sense of normalcy, but I don't know whether that's going to happen. And I think people need to really focus on how they respond to constant change and progression, because some people can cope for the moment as long as it goes back. But when you have to kind of imagine and envision something that's new, that's going to become normal, that takes a whole different amount of energy and a whole different way of thinking. So yeah, our mental health capacity and prowess is definitely being challenged right now.